So we finally had the state of the beta for Magic Arena for August, and it gives a lot of information on the new format Historic. Now, I was a hater of the format Historic for two reasons initially. One, the name bugged me. A, it's a type of card already, it's a mechanic on cards. And B, if it's just old standard going forward, then it's not going to be very fun or interesting for quite some time. And again, the name doesn't make any sense. Ixalan block doesn't feel historic. It's not part of Magic's deep history. Not yet, anyway. So my complaints and everyone else's complaints appear to have been taken on board, and my team have made changes to what Historic will be. Now, firstly, they announced there's going to be a casual thing with no, like, ranked ladder and such. They've scrapped that. There will be a ranked ladder. A best of 3 ladder is coming from December. Best of 3 from December, up until then from November onwards we'll have best of 1, and it will contribute towards the same rank as your constructed rank with normal standard. They're offering this for 4 weeks at first and then taking it away. Okay, kind of weird. I mean, does it mean that Historic is going to be on, off, as the article suggests? Mean that people who really want to get into Historic can't at certain times of the year, which is what Arena's all about, right? It's about giving you Pauper sometimes and not others, and giving you Singleton times and sometimes not others because of queue times and such. Ultimately, that decision is a little bit frustrating but understandable, and it doesn't really ring any flags for me. One of the things they say in the article, which I will link in the description below, is that they're seeing if they need to add its own ranked queue, or whether they can combine. They're looking at how this works and how the community reacts, and I really like the idea. But still, I was like, who cares? It's just old standard, right? Then they announced something very exciting. They're going to add historic rich history cards to the format. If this tweet from the MTG Arena Twitter account is anything to go by, well, they're looking to add Brainstorm, Firebolt, Wormcoil Engine and Dark Confidant among the other 15 to 20 cards they're going to add each quarter. Now this immediately made me go, that sounds like something I can get on board with. I personally think Arena is a really good client. It's fun, it's smooth, it's slick, and it looks good. And that's part of the reason that Magic is doing so well right now. And it's supposedly in the tier 3 of some people's tier list of online games or some shit. Arena is good, I enjoy it, but I don't really like Standard very much for the most part. I'll play it here and there sporadically. I'll play Limited on Arena especially as well, but I like Modern and Commander and Cube and Legacy and Vintage and Singleton formats, which you don't get a whole lot of on Arena yet. The idea that they're going to add more cards to Arena from older sets is something I've been clamoring for and begging for so long, and they've said they're going to do it. It might not be entire sets, it might not be the entirety of Modern Masters 1, but it's powerful, iconic cards that we all enjoy playing with and sometimes getting dumpstered by. On that note, a tangent. Of all those cards, they all seem fine except for perhaps Wormcoil Engine. I mean, there is a problem with colourless cards that are pushed because other colours can't compete. Or at 6CMC now, you either play Wormcoil Engine or something better than Wormcoil Engine, and most of the time, most things pale in comparison towards the unofficial 6th Titan of that period of Magic. It's like if they printed Prime Time into it, there wouldn't be a better 6-drop in the format. In green, there just wouldn't be for a long, long time. It's the same reason people doubt and get so funny with Gristle Brown and Emrakul and all the formats, because they kind of, that's just what you do when you chain something into play. So, by the same extension, if you're ramping up in mana with like a Nissa who shakes the world, why would you not just play a Wormcoil Engine? So whilst the other cards perform bit parts and like Brainstorm won't be good enough until it's got enough fetch or search effects to shuffle the library, and Dark Confidant, it's good, but it's not like gonna like homogenize decks. Wormcoil Engine is just the biggest, best thing you can do at 6 mana. So mid-range and ramp decks might be like, well, let's just put some Wormcoils in there. Anyway, let's talk about how these cards are being implemented. So there's been mention of some events. The first one will have some sort of fee to enter in November, and you'll get some of these historic cards. How many? Well, the article doesn't really clarify. Is it all of the ones being added, or some of the ones being added? Is it one of those cards, or a playset of those cards? None of those things are clear. But let's be honest, events that you can enter to win cards, to play the format, sounds good. Honestly, even if these things aren't clear right now, I can't complain about that. I think that sounds really, really fucking cool. The problem we come to next is how you get these cards outside of those events. We have been told that any historic card, whether it be the new ones that are being implemented, such as Wormcoil and Bob, if they do end up adding Wormcoil and Bob, any new historic card, including those and cards from past sets that are no longer in rotation after November, will cost you 2 wildcards instead of 1. My first reaction to this, my gut reaction, was frustration and a little bit of anger. And that is an emotional response. I'm going to run with that emotional response for a little bit, then I'm going to try to peel it back, become rational, and then talk about where we go from here. My emotional response was, fuck, really? If you don't know, I play a lot of Legacy and Modern on this channel. And the problem we have with Legacy and Modern is a barrier to entry. A lot of my Magic playing friends say that Magic is pay to win. I disagree with that statement. I believe it's pay to compete. For example, in my lucky role of being able to make content and having an account that I can rent things from to use on Modo, I'm not paying to win, I'm paying to enter. My skill, the decks I play, the brews, the metagames, the formats, all that factors in from there, right? But I agree, if you had to have access to all those cards, there's a pay to enter thing. Luckily, it's part of my job. And luckily, before my job, I used to rent these things anyway because I enjoyed playing Magic so much. It's my primary hobby, and I was lucky enough to have a disposable. Meanwhile, little Jimmy at the card shop playing Standard would look at a Modern deck and be bewildered by the cost of its mana base. We already have this problem where people can't get access to older formats, Modern, Legacy, and fuck, let's not bother talking about Vintage, right? Or their Commander decks are missing certain cards where it almost feels like pay to win when they can't afford the Paradox engines. Before, oh, was that too soon? My bad. Let's say little Jimmy just saves up some money to get that last couple of Azuris for his Fetchless Elves deck with his pocket money, because he doesn't have the disposable income. Perhaps he's from a weaker background in terms of economics, his parents just can't afford those things, he can't afford those things, his job isn't as good as some of the other people at the game stores in terms of pay, or perhaps he's just a child and he wants to try and play some Modern, but he's just not quite yet. So he's saved up for his Azuris and he can play his Modern deck now, right? And his friends are like, oh, have you seen the new Saffron Olive brew in Historic? And he watches the video, he's like, oh, this is really cool. Maybe I should draft this with my Wildcards. Meanwhile, he's trying to compete in Standard, which is the format that Wizards want him to play, but he just really wants to play a bit of Historic as well. And he's just not going to bother, because the cards cost twice as fucking much. Historically, the game has an issue with pay gating or pay walling or making it difficult, gatekeeping to an extent, other people from playing these formats. The reserve list was a mistake. I know Wizards employees, some of them really hate it and they've said they can't get rid of it, and no one's going to comment on that, that's not the point of this video, but the reserve list was a fucking mistake. This is almost like Arena's reserve list, except that it can be changed, it's not legally binding, and the problem can just go away overnight, but it's almost like Arena's reserve list. What I mean is, it's just keeping people out of another format that looks like it's going to be pretty cool. Legacy and Modern are still popular in spite of their huge price tags, and we still have people demanding and campaigning for fucking reprints, and then there's other cards that just can't reprint because of reserve lists. We're going to have situations where people will not buy into a deck during spoiler season because they're spending 2 wild cards on, let's say, Leyline of the Void, or like 8 for the whole playset, because it might just be in the next core set. We have a point where reprints are the way to lower the price of admission again in a digital format where it doesn't fucking matter how many cards exist. There is no reserve list, there is no secondary market. It is bonkers that we're looking to do this again. So, from a community perspective, from a growth of the game perspective, don't be so greedy as to make wildcards cost or be valued at half as much when buying your bloody historic cards. That's obscene. As much as I think Arena's a good program, it seems like every time I log on, there's an update in somewhere that it can be monetized. We've now got this like Fortnite-esque battle pass thing. I mean, that was a couple months ago, but like it feels like yesterday because of all the GPs and how fast Magic news just goes on to the next thing, right? We have a battle pass essentially what people were frustrated about. I mean, we've had also changes to these things that have been community feedback, but I feel like the focus for Arena seems to be on monetization over community growth and welfare of the game. So emotionally, I feel from a community perspective, this is a joke. Let's talk about it rationally, right? Wizards want to make some money. And disclaimer, I like Wizards making money. I think as long as Magic is doing well and Wizards are making the money from it and we get to play Magic and keep having this fantastic game live and evolve, I'm going to be a happy person. Hell, my channel, for the most part, is Magic related. I'd hope people would stick with me if I changed something else, but I don't want to, because I love Magic. So the growth and success of Magic is important to me as a player, as my job, as a creative, as all these things that Magic has helped me with, right? Magic growing and succeeding is great. But like record profits, Hasbro, is there not a point where you're like, you know what, we don't have to fuck over the community at this point? We know that people will still play Standard. People like Standard, okay? But we also know you, Hasbro, WOTC, whoever's responsible for these decisions, and us as well, we all know that historic players are going to buy less packs. Sure. So I get you need to monetize them in a different way by making wildcards less effective at getting the cards, they have to buy more packs of the new stuff. But that just ends up hurting little Jimmy at the card shop who wants to play this new format. That ends up just blocking off the format. Once we get into a year, 2 years, 3 years of historic, and kids are like, oh, I want to play this format, they're going to have to spend so many wildcards. And we all know that rare wildcards are like rocking horse shit. So many wildcards to draft those decks, to build those decks. What's the answer, some of you might say? Because constructive criticism, a request like this, an open letter, should have some sort of alternative, right? Sure. Let people draft this stuff. There's mention in the article about historic packs being available in like historic drafts, but I'm not gonna lie, no one wants to go back and draft triple Ixalan. If you're adding 15 to 20 cards, why not spice things up by having like a lot of cards from Amonkhet, a lot of cards from Ixalan, a lot of cards from Dominaria, and all these new cards as well. By new cards, I mean cards that already exist, so there's no development time spent there. In some sort of cube thing. I'm talking chaos sealed, chaos drafting, I'm talking cube products. Sure, this takes some more time and investment, but it creates a cool new thing that gets these cards into people's hands without fucking people over, but also allows people to spend the hard-earned money on doing it without getting shafted. I know you're not going to put Triple Innistrad on Arena, although if you're going to pick one set in the history of Magic, I bet Triple Innistrad will be the one that gets picked to go on there to draft format. Get people to draft, get people to do sealed, and give this stuff away in like events that you pay to enter, but you're earning it through like a Chaos Sealed. Chaos Seal, go 5 and 2 or better, get yourself a Wormcoil engine, gas. Alternatively, here's a hot take and an idea. It's just make them craftable 1-for-1. I know it doesn't like deeply monetize these enfranchised players as much as perhaps you want to, but it gets to a point where like greed ain't good. Like, this company, this game is making hand over fucking fist of money. Don't block away a community from playing historic by making things super, super expensive again. Or, and here's an or, in addition to this, perhaps allow dusting of some kind. Let me crack these crappy rares that I'm never going to play away into more wildcards. Rare wildcards are the fucking bottleneck here, right? The state of the beta changes that they mentioned all sound really cool. Like, rotation is coming, it's exciting. I want to get hyped. I want to play the new standard format. I want to play some Throne of Eldraine. I want to play Historic. And I want to play Brawl. As a quick side note, I will never build a paper Brawl deck, right? I've got like 3 or 4 Commander decks here, 3 Legacy decks, a Modern deck, a Mini Cube. These things are hard enough to maintain as it is. I'm never building a paper Brawl deck, but the idea of playing best of 1 with some sort of Commander, with like Singleton, on a Brawl, on Arena, that sounds gas. Basically, I'm looking for alternate ways to play Arena that isn't standard and constructed. Singleton, Pauper, Historic, all this stuff is gas. And I want to make content about Historic. I want to make content about Brawl. I want to make content about everything. I love making Magic content. But Jesus Christ, don't rip us off. Don't screw the pooch here. Don't shoot Historic in the foot. Make it stumble along and have a few people play it and other people can't get into it. We don't need another Legacy that isn't accessible because of a reserve list. We don't need that. And one more point before we end up here. The problem with reprints as well is that we get cards like Scald and Tarn that they can't put in a Commander product because they'll get price gouged and needs to go into a limited release set, and then those limited release sets get released at premium prices like Modern Horizons, and they're very, very successful and very popular formats for Commander, Legacy and Modern players, and people want to draft it and play it as well because the limited environment is gas, but the packs cost too much and no one drafts it, and boom, Wrenn and 6.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Unique cards that now cost $100 fucking because no one's opening the packs. No one's opening the packs. On that note, I will have a box opening video on my channel probably sometime next week or the week after called The Hunt for Wrenn and 6. I'm just going to crack a box of Modern Horizons and see how many Wrenn and 6s I can find to flip on the secondary market to pay for the box. No, only kidding, I'll keep them. Or maybe I'll taunt John on my Discord for them and be like, haha, you want these? Well, they're going in a folder, never to be played again. If you want your reprints to make sets accessible, don't put them in premium products. If you want people to play this older format, especially young kids and people who are playing free to play or have minimal expendable income that aren't the whales of the gaming industry, then please, for the love of God, don't make the format twice as expensive as standard. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Am I overreacting? Do you agree with me? Are you going to just not play Historic until they fix this? Do you think they'll fix this? I genuinely believe that Wizards are very good at the moment of listening to feedback and fixing things. So hopefully they'll see that everyone's just like, wow, man, this is bullshit. And they'll fix it. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Like the video, share it with your friends. Let's get the discussion going. Hopefully get the Arena team or whoever's telling the Arena team to do this to go, you know what? Just can that shit. Let's just do what we're going to do, but not make this format ludicrously expensive or difficult to build into. I've been Vince, also PleasantKenobi on the internet. I am your #1 source for sexy, handsome, bearded men on the internet. And I'll see you all very, very soon. Ta-ta for now.